What I want to start with today is basically, over the last few years, we've been seeing the same questions repeated over and over, both from clients, and I know that HubSpot gets a lot of the same questions also. So what I want to do is cover 4 different questions, feature requests. These are things that HubSpot has added in the last few years, so they're new. And they're things that I think most of us could probably use on a regular basis. Does this work? Yeah. Okay, so the 4 things I want to cover, I want to start with offline events, how to measure them in HubSpot. For a long time, HubSpot had this attitude towards anything that was offline that was like, well, if it's offline, that's the past. HubSpot will let you upload the list and that's it. We're not going to let you do anything else with it. They've recently been a little bit more flexible. There's some understanding that events are real things too, which is really nice of them. We have ABM Dashboards. So a lot of contacts and companies have always existed in HubSpot, but it's a little bit tricky to measure specific company engagement. So that's something else we want to cover. I think some of you will find that useful. Merging duplicates. Everyone has duplicates, I assume, in your CRM. And then cross-object reporting, which is a feature HubSpot added last year. Useful, again, for some of you, but I spaced it out so you can't space out. So let's start with events. So these are screenshots actually from HubSpot's feature request pages where people go to complain about things that don't exist on HubSpot that should. So I think the first one here is from 2017, but I'm sure they started much earlier. Basically, people were writing to HubSpot a lot and saying, okay, it's nice that inbound is a thing. We get it. It's cool. But I don't really know what to do with these giant lists of Excels that I'm coming back with events from. And for a year or two, HubSpot was telling people to upload them and do different things with them. But it was hard to measure basically revenue. It was hard to measure attribution. And especially when you come back from, these are sometimes the most relevant leads that companies have. And it was a problem for a long time. So the first thing that a lot of people run to when they have an event is like, okay, I have an event. I created a campaign in HubSpot for the email. I created a campaign for social media. I created a campaign for maybe even for the ads. So what I'll do is I'll take a Excel, I'll upload it from the event, I'll assign it to the campaign, and everything will be fine. Which isn't a terrible idea, but it's also not the most effective way to measure leads. And the problem with this idea is that if you've ever tried uploading a list and then assigning it to a campaign, what will happen is HubSpot will call it an influenced contact. So even if it's a first touch contact from an event, if you come back with Excel from an event and you upload it to HubSpot, what you're going to end up seeing is that you have a lot of influenced contacts. Whoever ran the event will not be happy because they're not getting credit for their leads. And you'll have influenced revenue, but it's not going to give you the full picture. So it's not really good enough, especially if event marketing is a large part of what you're doing. So what's the better way to handle this? It's a little bit more complicated. And it involves basically taking advantage of one of HubSpot's default properties called original source. So if you have an original source, let's say organic search, it comes with drill down properties. So you could see the search term if it's on Bing. So that's like 4% of all searches. And it will tell you, Google, Bing, whatever it is. It doesn't show for Google. It doesn't show the search term, I should say, for Google. But when you have an offline source, like an event, like an Excel, you can actually control what appears in original source drill down too. So if I name the event RSA Leads 2020, or trade show RSA Leads 2020, that will actually be the name of the original source drill down 2 for all the contacts. So what this means is you can control certain aspects of the contact's properties when you upload the list to HubSpot. So why is this important? Why am I talking about original sources when you could all get HubSpot certifications and learn about it? Because if you name things correctly, and that's why I'm starting here with naming conventions, if you name your list correctly, you could build workflows and reports for offline events that are pretty good, and I would say definitely good enough. So let's say I come back from an event. I went to RSA in March, April, whatever it is. I have a list of 1,000 contacts. I call it RSA Trade Show 2020. I upload this list to HubSpot. right now, all I have is a list with everybody who on that list has original source drill down 2. It says RSA Trade Show 2020. So what I can do, if I, let's say, wanted to filter out in the future everybody who came from a trade show, I could actually build a workflow, which is what you see here. And I could say, OK, if anybody who came from offline sources, and it says, let's say, trade show, for example, in there. Does this have a cool laser? Yes. OK, so if it says trade show, I could actually create a new property called lead source trade show. And then in the future, anytime I wanted to see what was happening from events, I can go to lead source trade show. Now, I could actually build this out even further. So if I was differentiating between conferences and trade shows, I would continue this workflow down the no column. So if I uploaded a list that said conference, then it would go down the no column of the workflow. And then I would have the same thing here that says original source drill down 2 contains conference, and then it would set lead source to conference. And if you've worked in HubSpot before, you can kind of see where this is going. The idea here is that everybody from that list will now have a new property called trade show. The original source drill down 2 will have the name of the actual event. And then when it comes time to report and show attribution, you can actually build a report with exactly these properties that you created. So now, after I built this workflow, I've uploaded this Excel. What I'll have is create date is this quarter, whatever it is, on the report builder. And I could actually make a filter to only show me trade shows, only show me seminars, or only show me conferences because I created this property and because everybody from that list was actually assigned that property value. And I can go even further. If I came back from RSA and people want to know, what the status of these leads are, I could add another filter here that says came from trade show, original source drill down 2 contains RSA. And then I could build a report that says RSA lead status. I could build a funnel. I could do whatever. I could show revenue. I can do whatever I want. But again, the key here, and Tamar spoke about this also, is really naming conventions and getting people to use HubSpot properly. If somebody uploads a list from Excel called leads from that event, none of this is going to work. So whoever's uploading the leads really has to take care to name the file properly. They'll automatically trigger the workflow, and they will appear in this report. But it is something that is possible, and now you'll be able to build custom reports for each and every event. This is a lot more simple, ABM dashboards. It's a lot more simple, partially because it's less possible. It's not as effective, I would say, as some other things. So there's two real issues when you're creating ABM, trying to run ABM campaigns out of HubSpot. One is that HubSpot really finds contacts to be the way to contact people. They don't view companies exist as a property, but HubSpot really runs through contacts as the primary object in the CRM. So that's one issue. And there's also a limited number of dashboards, right? There's really three issues. You can't build a dashboard for every company. I mean, you could. It's super impractical. It will cost you $200 a month, and nobody's going to look at 100 dashboards. And again, you can't filter the dashboard by company. So there's actually a filter option in HubSpot by dashboards, but company is not one of them. So I can't say show me only leads from, Serene, Marketing Envy, whatever it was. It's just not possible. So if I do have an ABM list, that's a battery. If I do have an ABM list and I want to see how my ABM is performing, what I can do is make sure that all leads from certain companies are assigned to a specific owner. So it doesn't even have to be a real person, but it probably should be. So you can have all ABM leads go automatically to Josh. Then I can basically filter this to only show Josh's leads. And basically what I get instantly is a dashboard of ABM contacts, which is cool. The other way to do it, which is really the same thing, but you could use teams. So if you have a team that only deals with ABM leads, what you can do is make sure, again, you create a list of all the companies in your ABM list and make sure that they are assigned to that team. And then the dashboard will automatically filter and only show you the ABM contacts. I promise I'll get the questions at the end. I just want to make sure I get through everything. The third thing I want to talk about is merging duplicate contacts. So everybody's duplicate contacts. It's impossible not to. HubSpot has actually built a very cool manage duplicates feature, if you're not using it yet, into the CRM. So if you go to contacts in HubSpot, you go to actions, there's an option called manage duplicates. And if you open it, what you see here is basically it will give you the two options. So you'll see, here we have the two Hannah Steins. It's the same email. One of them has a phone number, one of them doesn't. And what's actually interesting is if there's a cookie, there will be a last activity date. So you want to merge the contact into the person that has an activity on the website or has the most information. And what it asks you, which record would you like to keep? You choose the one that has the most up-to-date data, and you press merge. So what happens after you press merge? What happens to all the old data, right, from the last one? So HubSpot, with a couple of exceptions, will basically just take the most recent data, and that'll be the new data for the contact. There are exceptions for this. One of them is lifecycle stages. If you've worked with HubSpot, you know HubSpot does not let you do anything that sets lifecycle stages backwards. You have to clear the property. It's a whole story every time you want to do anything. So it will take the most advanced lifecycle stage. So if you have one that's a customer and one that's an MQL, it's not going to set them back to MQL because HubSpot does not believe in setting back lifecycle stages. It's also not going to use the most recent create date because obviously the original create date is the real one. And the number of conversions, a couple other properties, but number of conversions, basically it's going to add them together. It's not going to take the most recently updated one because if they've downloaded 5 things from one contact and 2 from another, it wouldn't make any sense to only write 5, so write 7. It will add them together. Also, if Salesforce Sync is on, it will only sync the primary HubSpot's previous Salesforce record. So whatever it was syncing to in Salesforce, it's not going to sync to the old one anymore. That one basically is no longer being synced. So it's something important to keep in mind. But merging duplicate contacts is actually really, really easy. It's something we get asked a lot. It's not super complicated and is definitely something that I think everybody could probably use. Last thing is the cross-object reporting in HubSpot. This was something, has anybody here been to a HubSpot, like the conference in Boston? Yeah? So you know how when they release new features, they try and get everyone to be super excited and it doesn't always work? This was actually super cool. This is the type of thing that actually people got excited about. Because what this basically lets you do in reports is use data from different types of objects. So in HubSpot, you have deals, contacts, properties, activities. There's a lot going on, and for a long time, HubSpot wouldn't let them talk to each other. You couldn't build a report that showed deals next to contacts, next to where the contacts came from. Just wasn't a thing. Last year, 2018, they released this feature, which not everybody is using yet. And one of the reasons not everyone is using it is because it's a little bit hard to figure out sometimes what exactly to use it for. But what this is, and this is what HubSpot compared it to, is it's basically VLOOKUP, right? You have 2 separate columns. There are people here who know more about Excel than I do. I'm not going to make a fool out of myself. But anyway, so what does it mean to build a cross-object report? So we have, let's say you wanted to measure where people are in deals based on how many activities they've taken in the past. Activity is one object in HubSpot. Deals are another. So I want to see what activities are bringing the most deals. So when I go to build a report, you would actually choose cross-object report. You would pick the activity and versus deals. You can't compare 3 different things. So here we're only doing deals and activities. And if you actually build this into a report, what you'll be able to see, I don't know how well you can see this, but you could see basically every activity, emails, sent to contact, notes, tasks, calls, meetings, and how many of these are being used for every deal and every deal stage. So here you can see the deal stages of this example. So check out abandon, and you can see what they've done. So they have a lot of incoming emails, but they haven't done much of anything else. Again, this is deal stages are custom for everyone. But you could see in closed one, you could even see how many calls it takes to get to closed one. This isn't something that would be possible even a year and a half ago. It's a new feature. There's a lot of different ways to combine it. If anybody has actually gone into HubSpot reports and tried to build reports, often it'll be like a mess, basically the graphs. But there are a few suggested HubSpot cross-object reports. This is one of them. You could also do deals by original source, things that just weren't possible even a year and a half ago. And that is basically it. If anybody has any questions,